Most of the time, I only need one compressor when mastering an audiobook, and that's usually plenty. But every now and then, I'll stack a second compressor right after the first one to help me finalize my level before it hits the limiter. That's called series compression. Now let me show you how this works and how I decide when to use one or when to use both compressors. As you can see in my inserts or my effects rack, I have two compressors. They're both Pro Tools stock compressors called the BF76. I'll pull the first one up here, and we'll move it a little bit right there, make sure the meter's kind of out of the way, and then I'll pull up the second compressor. We'll put that kind of off to the side there. The first compressor's job is pretty simple. It's here to even out the performance. If you've got a few words that jump out or phrases that dip too quiet, this compressor's job is to bring everything closer together before you do anything else. As you can see here, this recording is pretty dynamic, meaning I need to get all of these different peaks and valleys and all these different high volumes to be leveled out to about the average to down here, to this volume. Now, let me show you what compressor 1 is doing right here on the left side. All of the compressors here are set moderately fast because I want them to react quickly but not sound choppy. I'm just trying to catch all of the inconsistencies, not flatten the performance. And you'll notice once I play the audio how much compression I'm getting on the VU meter here. So let's take a listen with the compressors bypassed first. And actually let me move this Pro Tools meter in just so we can get a visual. And let me actually jump to a spot that's pretty dynamic, like right here, because we've got some louder parts here, we've got some quieter, and back to some louder parts here. So I'm going to turn this first compressor on, and we'll see how much reduction I'm getting. But to go over the settings really quickly, as you can see here, I'm using a 12:1 ratio, meaning for every 1 dB that the audio goes over the threshold, it'll compress that audio by 12 dB. So let's play the audio first, and I will turn off bypass.
Screams. He hears what sounds like human screams from a great distance away, but can't imagine anyone else is out here, and decides it must be an animal.
Now, for some context, let's check out what the meter is doing here, because even though I caught all of this with my ears, a visual representation never hurts. So, with the compressor off, we can see how much of a dynamic change in volume visually this audio has. If I start from right here, we can watch the Pro Tools meter here while listening to see the different change in volume that we get.
But can't imagine anyone else is out here, and decides it must be an animal, or the type of aural illusion that occurs so often when he's alone this deep in the disorienting woods.
So just on those dynamic parts, we're getting anywhere from -15 to -16 on the louder parts, and around -22 or thereabouts when he gets quieter. Now with compression, we want to make sure everything is leveled out. So the first compressor is taking the brunt of the abuse and taking all of these higher peaks and taming them down to where these lower peaks are. So let's take a listen, and we'll turn the first compressor on.
He hears what sounds like human screams from a great distance away, but can't imagine anyone else is out here, and decides it must be an animal.
So as you can see, this first compressor is leveling everything out to around -22 to around -20. Now, sometimes that first compressor does enough, but if the overall level is still sitting too low, or the peaks and valleys still feel a little uneven, I'll bring up the second compressor right here. You can think of this second compressor as a finishing stage. I'm not crushing the dynamics, just tightening up everything so that my limiter at the end doesn't have to work too hard. By the time the audio leaves this second compressor, I want the level hovering around 3/4 of the way up, or around -8 on the Pro Tools meter. And then that tells me that I have a nice, healthy, balanced level before the limiter. So for context, let's actually bring up the limiter first, just to show you how hard this limiter will have to hit to get to spec. So now I'm going to turn off the bypass on the limiter here so that the plugin is on, and then I'll play some audio. I'll start pulling down my threshold here just so we can get to level.
He hears what sounds like human screams from a great distance away, but can't imagine anyone else is out here, and decides it must be an animal, or the type of aural illusion that occurs so often when he's alone this deep in the disorienting woods.
So the volume is there, but how do we know if we hit spec? Well, let's put this into practice. So what I'm going to do is in Pro Tools, I have the ability to listen to all of my effects in real time right here in the inserts window, but then I can pull up the same effects in my audio suites menu right here, and I'll get the same exact plugins. So I will grab the compressor, and as you can see here, same exact plugin, but now I have a little render button right here. So now I can apply this effect directly to the track. So if we slide this down a little bit, just so we can see everything, and I will also just zoom out. So with this first compressor, let's copy the settings, and with the Audio Suites plugin, we will paste those settings in, and let's hit render. Cool. So if I zoom out, everything is pretty much leveled out. If I undo that, we can see that all of those dynamics got tamed. Let's redo it so they're all applied again. And that's great. But did my limiter hit spec? So let's do the same thing. Let's change this one to the limiter. And for context, we'll just turn these off, even though I'm not going to play them right now. And let's do the same thing here. So let's copy these settings and paste them in, and then hit render. Cool. So big difference in volume, but I'll just kind of turn that down visually, not audibly, but this is just how we can view the waveform. And then we will go over to this plugin and see if we hit spec. So if I hit analyze, cool, we're at -21 for RMS, and for peak, we are at -3. But because I had to crank the volume on this limiter, it could start to get a little pumpy or sound unnatural. And that's where the second compressor comes in, so we can get our volume to that 3/4 of the way up on the Pro Tools meter and make sure we get that healthy volume. So let's undo that, and then undo that as well. Maybe I'll blow the waveform up just so we can see everything again. And with both plugins on, let's play some audio here just to see what's happening with our Pro Tools meter and what both compressors are doing.
Even closing the shop early, something his dad never did, particularly during hunting season. He has only the narrowest of margins, like the small strip of light from a slightly open door in which there will be enough illumination for exposure.
So as you can see, if you were watching the second compressor, the volume came up on the Pro Tools meter here, so we were getting that 3/4 of the way up. Now I'll play the audio again and watch how this second compressor's VU meter is just dabbling with around a 0.5 dB to around -2 dB of compression.
Even closing the shop early, something his dad never did, particularly during hunting season. He has only the narrowest of margins, like the small strip of light from a slightly open door in which there will be enough illumination for exposure.
Now, if I do the same thing as we did before, where I select the audio, now let's copy the settings of this first plugin, and we will grab the compressor from Audio Suite, and then we will paste this in. We're getting everything leveled out, so that's awesome. And now let's bring our level to that 3/4 of the way up with our second compressor. So we'll do the same thing. We'll copy these settings and paste them in here. So we got a big difference in volume. Let's just visually be able to see that a little bit more. And now let's pull up the limiter in our real-time effect, and we'll put that back to 0 since we don't need to crank it that much. Turn this on. We'll bypass these two that are in real time since we applied the effect directly to the track. So now once we pull this limiter up, I will be less strenuous on the threshold, so that way we won't need to be pulling the threshold all the way down as much and being so aggressive, because now we've got that overall volume to be more consistent. It's higher in gain, so that way the limiter doesn't have to work as hard. So now that I've got the limiter and we have our settings in, let me play the audio while I pull this limiter down.
Quieting than any sound he's ever encountered out here. It's not a person, he tells himself. It's not. Can't be. But even if it were, you'd never be able to find anyone out here.
So that sounds pretty good to me, but did we hit spec? Let's do the same thing here. Let's copy these settings, go up to Audio Suite, and we'll pull up that same limiter. Let's paste them in and select our audio and hit render. All right, cool. So let's pull this down. So now we can analyze, and our peak is -3, which is great, and our RMS is -19.4. So we've hit spec. So here's the takeaway. If your recording already feels balanced, stick with one compressor. But if you find your limiter is working a little too hard or your dynamics still feel uneven, try adding in the second compressor to finish the job. And if you want help shaping your tone once compression is dialed in, then grab my free narration EQ guide. It's a quick reference that shows you where to cut or boost for clarity, warmth, and presence in your voice. And you can grab this at thehomeaudioproject.com/EQ. But with that, I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video real soon.